To start off creating your poster, what you're going to do is open up your line drawing scan, which should be a JPEG image. Just open it into Illustrator. If yours comes up and your page is set up as landscape and your poster is portrait, all you need to do is go to your document setup, press Edit Artboards, and then just up here at the top, turn that to portrait. Grab your black mouse and click off and that will be done. We're also going to bring in your digital composition, just so you can have a look for colours. If it comes up in a different window, just grab the image, drag it up here and drop it in. Pretty straightforward. And we'll just bring that out, holding down Shift, making sure it's the same proportions. And we'll use this as a kind of colour guide. What we're going to do is we want to create as much as possible using the Shape tool. So I'm going to start off with the Ellipse tool. That's just a fancy word for circle. And all I do is kind of hover at the top and I'm going to drag it out in a fairly similar shape as my corn. I'm using my line drawing just as a guide for what I'm going to create. I use my black tool to bring it over the top, and then to grab the colour that I want, I'm going to use the eyedropper tool, and I'm just going to grab some of that yellow colour that is in my corn over here. Sometimes what happens is it will go grayscale. In order to change it out of grayscale, if this happens to you, just go up to Window and click Colour. And over in this little drop-down menu, just make sure it's checked at CMYK. If it's grey, it's probably checked on the grayscale option. So you just want to make sure it's on CMYK. Because this corn's not perfect, this ellipse tool is not perfectly matched to the corn, what I want to do is edit some of the anchor points, and I do that using my white mouse. This means that I can directly select each individual point and change it. So what I'm going to do is click on the anchor point, the little blue square, and then I can change it as I wish. So I'm going to just make it match up a little bit closer to the corn underneath. Make sure to do this, you have to click on the blue square before you start moving it. Otherwise, it'll move the entire shape. So just click on it, move it around a little bit, make it a little bit closer to the shape that I want. I'm going to add all the individual corn pieces in a minute or later on. So that's the first bit I'm going to do. Then I'm going to grab, for the corn kernels, I'm going to use a rounded rectangle. I'm going to go up here and just draw out a rough kind of shape. Use my black mouse. Here I'm going to, if I hover my mouse out on the corner, I can rotate the shape a little bit. So it's getting a little bit closer. And then what I want to do is make it a little bit more triangular. So something I can do is edit individual corners, again using the white mouse to do an individual point. If I click on this little white circle, I can bring in the shapes in the corners. So that works as well. Something else I could do is use this tool over here, the Delete Anchor Point tool, and I can actually go and delete anchor points, and that works as well. I think the best option was doing it this way though. Oops. Just need to make sure I click on the point first, so I'm just moving one corner. Click on the point and move that in there. And might move this one back a little bit. So it's just kind of fiddling around until you're happy. I think that's pretty good. Something else I can do is change the handles. What this does is means that it changes the actual angle. So you have to click on the point before, and you can just have a fiddle around, see what happens if you move the handles around. It takes a little bit of practice. So there's my first piece of corn, and that's all right. I'm just going to change this handle a little bit so it's not such a sharp point. I might even use that little curve tool to bring it in a little bit. There we go, that's better. So that's a fairly kind of rough and ready looking corn kernel. I'm going to actually use this shape for all of the corn kernels, but I'm going to edit them as I go. So what I'm going to do is use my black mouse, which is the selection tool and copies the whole shape, hold down Option, and this means that I can drag another one. So what I'm going to do now is just slightly kind of change the shape a little bit, maybe bring it out, make it a little bit wider, change the angle, just so that they're all starting to look a little bit different. Grab that one, bring it over here, again rotating it. This one's is definitely a little bit longer and skinnier, so I'll bring it out here, maybe bring in the shape this way. So it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but you do want to give it a little bit more kind of variation. So you can do this however you want to. As you can see, as I would keep going, I would end up with all these different kind of little corn kernel shapes that look like they're all completely different, even though I've used the same basic shape to create them. And you would spend a little bit more time on this than me to make sure you're happy with the finished outcome. So I'm just going to leave it there, and you can go and change those as you wish. Oops. Put that one up there, just fix it up a little bit. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is using a gradient. So we've started putting in these block shapes, but obviously it doesn't really look anything like this image yet. So what I'm going to show you is how to do a gradient. And I just realized my image here is actually a little bit different to the one I've created of my line drawing scan. So I'm just going to delete this one and grab the correct one. I think, is it this one? Let's have a look here. Just find the right drawing. That's not it either. Here we go. This one will do. Okay. So it's generally better if you have it as a JPEG, but that's okay for right now. I'm just going to go Command C, and I'm going to pop it in over here, Command V. So now I can make sure that all of my colours are going to be the same as what I've got here. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go and do add a gradient in that kind of matches this one. So I'm going to do that of this corn over here that you can see. Let's delete that. This piece of corn here. So what I'm going to do is click on the corn, and then I'm going to go over here to my gradient toolbar. What I want to do is the fill colour that is in here, I'm going to just drag down onto here. And then what I want to do is add a colour in here that's not black. I want some kind of a brown colour here. So I'm going to click on this one, and then I'm going to grab my eye picker tool and grab that kind of brown colour. And all I need to do then is just drag it up on the top here. As you can see, the black gradient slider is still there. So the way I get rid of that is just click on it and kind of pull it off, and that will get rid of it. I can play around with my gradient. I can make it more yellow, more orange, whatever I want. And I can also have a play around with the angle of the gradient. So we want it on linear, and I also want that orange darker bit to be down the bottom. So I'm just going to have a play around with the angle. Oops, click that. I'm going to try 60 degrees and see what that comes up with.